I am excited to introduce Dr. Miriam Bauer, who is the co-founder of Sonify Biosciences. Dr. Bauer, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thanks for the introduction. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. We are Sonify Biosciences. We're the hyperthermia people. So Sonify is building better hyperthermia equipment. Hyperthermia is a broadly active cancer therapy that gently heats and treats many types of tumors. There's absolutely no question that it works. Hyperthermia has decades of positive patient outcomes, existing US billing codes, and full US Medicare reimbursement. But despite all of that, less than 1% of people who are eligible for this therapy actually receive it. Hyperthermia therapy is so underused because radiation oncologists and other thermal oncology professionals have been struggling with bad equipment for nearly half a century. So currently available hyperthermia systems have challenges with accuracy, affordability, and non-invasiveness. And temperature control is the limiting factor there. So one system only measures surface temperatures, so that sacrifices accuracy. Another temperature feedback system is, it's so prohibitively expensive that literally nobody uses it. And a third option is, well, it sacrifices patient experience with an extremely invasive and uncomfortable temperature feedback system. However, Sonify's technology sacrifices none of these. We meet all clinical and patient requirements. So our solution combines ultrasound-based heating with passive microwave radiometry-based temperature feedback. And both ultrasound and passive microwave radiometry are very well understood. Ultrasound, along with being a very popular imaging technique, is a great way to heat things up. Passive microradiometry is a very sensitive thermal imaging approach that NASA uses to detect microwaves from the farthest reaches of the universe. And we're just taking that technology and bringing it a little bit closer to home. So here, ultrasonic energy propagates from the ultrasound transducer to the tumor site. The tumor site heats up. Our microwave patch antenna detects that temperature change, sends the data through a signal processor, and that signal processor increases or decreases the ultrasound transducer output to hold that temperature stable throughout the duration of the therapy, which is between 30 and 60 minutes. It just depends upon the practitioner and how they're used to using it. So let's go here. So the question is, that was a really nice little infographic, but does it actually work? And the answer is yes. And here's some of our data. So on the left, ultrasound is providing like a really tight heating profile. Our doctors want accuracy to within 1 degree Celsius, and we're able to show it to within 1/4 to 1/2 degree. And on the right, we have got a passive microwave antenna, and that can provide temperature feedback on par with an implanted fiber optic. So, another question that we get a lot is, this hasn't been done before? Why hasn't that, why haven't we seen this? And the answer to that is that most of the systems that are on the market today heat via microwaves. And if you've got a microwave transducer working to heat up a volume of tissue, that generates a ton of noise that would completely overwhelm a little antenna like the one pictured here, which should give you some idea of the scale of that. It's about 1 inch in diameter, or like about 2 to 2.5 centimeters in diameter. So we overcome those issues by heating with ultrasound, and combining ultrasound with this passive microwave radiometry is kind of the quote unquote special sauce that we're bringing to the table. And it's worth noting that we do have the freedom to operate. We've got intellectual property. Sonify has patents granted and pending in the EU and the US, respectively, that protect our innovative approach. And in clinic, I mentioned that there's a lot of clinical data showing that hyperthermia works. Here's some of it. And hyperthermia is very effective, even with the shoddy equipment that these dedicated practitioners are still, soldiering away with here. Hyperthermia is used to boost the efficacy of other therapeutics, most commonly radiation therapy. So comparing radiation alone to radiation plus hyperthermia shows a significant increase in complete responses in locally recurrent breast cancer, which is one of the fully reimbursed indications that are covered by existing billing codes. Melanoma is another, or locally recurrent melanoma is another fully reimbursed indication that has an existing billing code that responds well to hyperthermia. And a fun fact about the paper that this data is from is that the authors reported that only 14% of the hyperthermia treatments were actually hitting their mark. So you can look at this data and imagine what the rate of complete responses might have been if they had equipment that functions well. Finally, my last example here is late-stage head and neck cancer, which also responds to hyperthermia, as do soft tissue sarcomas, genitourinary cancers like cervical cancer and prostate cancer, and even glioblastomas are on this, part of this non-exhaustive list of cancers that respond to hyperthermia. Hyperthermia should be the next radiation therapy, and it should have been in the 90s, but due to those equipment shortcomings, it never fulfilled its potential. But with Sonify's innovations, we could make that a reality. So we're currently raising money to fund a build out of our MVP. And about $1 to $1.25 million will get us there, and we'll also fund some preliminary animal work. We expect to enter the market around 2024. We've got institutions domestically and abroad that have already expressed interest in using Sonify's product the moment it's approved. We've also identified institutions both for future investment to fully marketize the product organically within Sonify, as well as institutions that could be potential acquirers by the end of 2025. So we're a very open and innovative management team. We bring new meaning to bootstrapping. And so with the help of our advisors, we've identified a significant amount of non-dilutive funding sources in Brazil. So we've got a licensing deal down there with a device manufacturer and distributor already. And we see a very rewarding future doing some proportion of our work in Brazil, where the technical talent is absolutely world-class and the costs are low. So here's our team. We've got extensive technical depth. We've got physicians, we've got hyperthermia specialists, engineers, biochemists, physicists on our team here. And we're equally strong with our business and sales. So we've got seasoned tech, biotech generally, and device-specific veterans with experience in small startups, medium and large-sized ventures, scaling up, successful exits. They've got IPOs under their belts, and some have led publicly traded multinational corporations. So we are ready to go. Thanks so much for listening, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Power. That was fantastic. I'm always in admiration of companies that are able to take existing technology but use it in novel ways to really take the entire delivery system to the next level. Very, very cool. Particularly like the fact that your microwave antennas are used for the cosmic background radiation. So you can dual use there. Dr. Thakkar, I know it's a little bit outside of your cardiology experience, but being an experienced radiologist, I'm sure you're familiar with the equipment involved. What do you think of this technology, and what do you think of the forward use and hurdles to adoption?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Brown. That was a great presentation. And it really sounds like a pretty exciting opportunity, thinking of it as carving out a niche in a existing approach, but doing it with this new, very broadly applicable technology with IP protection. So yeah, my initial thoughts, I wonder, I'm not expert in oncology, but you mentioned how the clinical efficacy data is there for hyperthermia, but it's underutilized. Yeah. I wonder if presumably all the data up till now has been through this pre-existing microwave technology. So I wonder, are all those data applicable to your modality, which is to say, regardless of the mechanism of heating, of hyperthermia, is that efficacy data applicable, not only in the sense that it works, just as long as you heat it in any way, microwave or ultrasound, but also the adverse effect profile. Is there more or less adverse effects likely to occur with any sort of heating modality?
So the method of heating itself doesn't matter. You're just heating it up. Like microwaves, remember, that's non-ionizing radiation. So you're not affecting anything at directly like you would with ionizing radiation, where that actually, induces things like double-stranded DNA breaks. So none of that's happening. This is a gentle heat. The problem that we're tackling is, how do we heat up a volume of tissue, and how do we keep that tissue temperature stable to within 1 degree Celsius for 30 to 60 minutes? So if anything, once Sonify's equipment gets out there in clinic, we will see, I think, more consistency in the data. You know, like I had a slide up there from a paper where even though we saw like an appreciable level of complete responses that, you know, increased with the use of hyperthermia versus, you know, hyperthermia plus radiation versus radiation alone, that was only with 14% of those treatments actually hitting their target. And once that problem, which is based around temperature feedback, once that problem gets solved, there may be a refinement of the existing body of data, but it's going to, for the most part, remain the same.
And does your technology? I'm assuming, you know, there has to be a focus of the signal in the ultrasound beam. How do you do that, and how deep can it penetrate? Is there you know, only at surface level, or is there internal ultrasound delivery system that you've created?
Yes, that's a great question. So both ultrasound and passive microradiometry are focusable. They both operate at depth. So part of what we're raising money to do is to find out what those limitations are. How deep can we go? We know that we can go from 0 to 2 centimeters below patient skin surface, and we know that for sure. So like we're starting out with a device that will be intended for superficial tumors. As our research continues and we find out what the, you know, what the parameters of what we're doing, we find out what they are, we will I mean, gosh, I can't tell you how many times we've heard from our KOLs that, like, you know, how deep can you go? Can you go 8 centimeters yet? So that's like something we're really looking forward to sinking our teeth in to as we, you know, once we raise money and we can start working on this build out.
Very exciting. Yeah, Mike, you want to handle some of these questions?
Yeah, sure. I'll toss some balls in here. First and foremost, though, to the audience itself, make sure you click on that poll link in there. The feedback you guys provide these companies is invaluable. One of the reasons they want to come here and present to this wonderful and intelligent crowd is so that they can get your feedback on an ongoing basis. So please do them the service of answering just a very few number of multiple choice questions. Now, with that, so one of the things that struck me immediately on this is that given the inadequacies in the current hyperthermia equipment out there to provide treatment, and therefore the lack of adoption that we've seen in the space, do you foresee any hurdles in terms of getting into the space to kind of convince people that have been, you know, grown to be skeptical of the procedure over the last 10 to 20 years?
Yeah. I mean, definitely one of the hurdles we do have to overcome, like you say, is skepticism. I mean, these are like the reputation that hyperthermia equipment has is that it is hard to use. It's hard to position. It's hard to move around. It's unwieldy. It's not accurate. And all of that, like, yeah, that's true. And we're going to have to overcome that. You know,
any ideas how you're going to do that? That seems
yeah.
like
So yeah. Well, the nice thing is that there are still people who you know are very much looking forward to improved equipment, and that's like we have some evidence of that. We have, you know, I mean, first of all, we're building to the spec of our KOLs, and we've got, you know, experts in the field. Some of like the world's leading experts in hyperthermia are a part of our team and have been kind of steering our work. So that's number one. And, you know, I'm going to come back to like there being interest. So we know that there's interest in improved product because like the first several devices that we manufacture are already spoken for. We've got some institutions here in the US. We also have some institutions in the Netherlands and Germany, which are the top 2 per capita users of hyperthermia in clinic. And we're also exploring how to integrate like CME courses for education to broaden our reach. So anybody who wants to help us do that, like, come hit us up afterwards.
For that matter, audience, like if you're interested in getting a continuing education course on it, let us know. We can even set that up on this platform. That'd be a great topic for discussion at a future time. Oncology is a specific specialty next quarter anyway, so that'd be a great opportunity for us to do that. So given that the existing equipment, like the process itself, both ultrasound heating and microwave measurement are both within the realm of accepted procedures, what do you foresee as your regulatory process for adoption here in terms of approval?
Okay, so to begin with, all hyperthermia devices are class 3 products. So it's not necessarily going to be a 510K walk through the park here, but That being said, there are hyperthermia devices that are like already on the market, and there's tons of data, and there's no need for us to reinvent the wheel. So what we're going to do is go for a generic hyperthermia label, and that means we're going to show safety and efficacy. Like we're going to show that we can say, okay, we're going to heat up this target volume of tissue, and we're going to hold it there for 60 minutes. And the follow-up would be, do we see any signs of heat damage? Do we see any burning? Do we see any redness? Do we see any blisters? Those would be the questions that we answer. So the patient cohort would be fairly small. It would be approximately 14 to 16 patients. And the follow-up would be short, it'd be about 3 months, because like I said, we're not looking to reinvent the wheel by doing indication-specific clinicals, right, just to enter the market. And we don't expect to see any heat damage, because hyperthermia is generally regarded as having, well, the scientist in me backs away from saying, oh, it has no side effects, but it is essentially side effect free. So we think that this will, help accelerate our path through the FDA.
Okay, great. And just as a reminder, I know you had your timeline up there. When do you expect to be in market at this time?
About 2025.
25. Okay. And just one last question around a little more detail about the types of tumors that you believe you'll be able to treat. I know you specifically mentioned that people are asking, can you get to 8 centimeters deep and so on? But for now, what is your expectation in terms of the size, types of tumors, and the depths that you will be able to treat, or at least assist in treatment with this type of product?
Sure. Yeah, so anything 0 to 2 centimeters below skin surface, we absolutely know that we could do. This is so the problem from like a scientific technical perspective that we're tackling, it's actually easier to work larger than it is to work smaller. So we can small for us is about the volume of a sugar cube. The nice thing is that we want to keep the margins around a tumor as tight as we can, but because hyperthermia is generally considered to be side effect free, if healthy tissue is treated as well, it generally you have no change in its health. It gets through this therapy very, very easily. So like I said, smaller volumes are a little bit more difficult, and that's kind of what we want to see. We want to check out what are our parameters. We know we can do a sugar cube. Can we do anything smaller? And can we do anything deeper than 2 centimeters? And if so, how deep? And we expect that we can. I just don't want to deliver false promises here. And as far as tumor types, like I said, any superficial tumor that is known to respond to hyperthermia, go forth, use our equipment, conquer. Any deeper tumors within the viscera, one of the things that is really interesting to us is, for example, pancreatic cancer, because it has a lot of the same hallmarks of melanoma. And if melanoma responds as well to hyperthermia, then hey, let's tackle pancreatic cancer. There are so few treatment options for people out there. Let's do it. So it's a pretty, like I said, it's broadly active. We've got locally recurrent breast cancer, locally recurrent melanoma. We have glioblastomas, head and neck cancers, soft tissue sarcomas, prostate cancer, cervical cancer, and there are others. And those are the ones that I kind of store on the tip of my tongue.
Well, I'm going to move on just because I know we have so many great questions, and I'd love to ask them all. But I'm going to do one last one before we close out, and that's an excellent question from Dr. Kaplan regarding competitive technologies, specifically cryoablation, radiofrequency treatments. Is this a standalone product? It's meant to be operated only in pairing with radiological treatments, or how exactly does it compare to other techniques?
Sure. So hyperthermia, think about hyperthermia as something that can boost the efficacy of other therapies. I stuck to at this particular presentation. I stuck to radiation therapy because that's what it's used most commonly in clinic, and that's because that's what Medicare covers. But it also boosts the efficacy of different kinds of chemotherapeutics. Some examples would be the platinum-based chemotherapeutics, as well as gemcitabine. There's also a lot of really exciting data coming out with hyperthermia in combination with immunotherapies, and we're on Merck's radar because they are interested to see how what our device can do when combined with an immune checkpoint inhibitor like their PD-1, PD-L1 drug that they make. So also just to be clear, this is non-ablative. This is so we're not really in this. We're not like a surgical technique at the end of the day. This is not what we are. We are not burning. So like burning temperatures are about 44 degrees Celsius and above. Hyperthermia is like this local hyperthermia is 41 to 43 Celsius. So we don't hit those burning temperatures, just to be clear.
It also does then suggest an easier regulatory approval process, since you're not seeking to be the direct.
Yeah, it's just we want to show that. I mean, if you're going for an indication specific, yes, but we're going for generic hyperthermia, so at least out the gate, just so we can get to market faster. We're trying to keep it simple, but that's not to say that in the future we will not go back and do, some indication specific trials. But just to start, so we can get to hit market faster, we're going to keep it for generic hyperthermia. That also makes us a better target for acquisition.
Yeah. Excellent point. Great. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Bauer. Love having you guys here.